Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. There are a lot of, how do I put this? Stupid fragrance myths out there.
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
The type of things where sometimes you read it and you just think to yourself, I don't want to be on this planet anymore. This can't be real. But then of course, a lot of these fragrance myths are just passed around like campfire tales for so long that it becomes reality, even if it's actually not.
That's a myth.
So we're gonna be taking some of those fragrance myths today and crushing them. The first myth we have to debunk is what I like to call the salad dressing shake. All right, stick with me here. The myth, which I didn't even know this was a thing until here recently, I've seen it cropping up more and more people talking about this. But the myth is that you need to vigorously shake your fragrance bottles in order to mix the separated oils in there before applying. And the idea behind it is you're mixing the fragrance together by shaking it, which helps the fragrance smell better? And this mainly applies to cologne fragrances. So I've seen this popping up a lot where people are like, oh, it was really, really bad, but then I shook the bottle up like 3 or 4 times. Pfft, way better. You just gotta mix the oils. Not for nothing, guys, but fragrances are not vinaigrette dressings. It's not an Italian dressing that you would throw onto your salad, okay? You don't have oil and vinegar separating inside these bottles. You don't have the fragrance oil separating from the alcohol inside of here. Commercial fragrances, when they are sold to you, are fully homogenized solutions, okay? The oil has binded to the alcohol, the solvent. Well, for all the fragrances that use alcohol, it would be alcohol, but you know what I'm saying. Shaking doesn't do anything to alter the chemical structure of what's in here. They're not selling you stuff that, like I said, separates as it would in a salad dressing bottle. Maybe you're introducing air bubbles kind of in there by shaking it up aggressively, but is that going to make the fragrance blend together better? No. This is more like a placebo effect where people go like, the brand is so effing cheap that they put it into the bottle without even bothering to do anything. They just willy-nilly kind of eyeballed it and went, I don't know, man, throw some alcohol in there, I guess. Nah, throw some oil in there too, hell with it. Don't even try to mix this or blend this or anything, just ship it. Nice. And in this myth, somehow it reacts in such a way that they just stay separate the whole way from like shipping to you getting it, and you gotta jack the bottle in order to get your stuff mixed. It's not real. Salad dresser shaking, no. Next myth, fragrance cologne maceration, or whatever you would like to call it that sometimes rhymes with maceration.
Once in the morning right after I work out, and then once right after lunch. Really?
I know what kind of man you are. The idea though is that you take your cologne fragrance bottle. You go ahead, you give it a spray, and then you put the cap back on, or some people will say don't put the cap back on, and you just set it to the side. Let it macerate. So the maceration actually takes place in the factory in these enormous vats. And that's before the fragrance ever actually meets the glass. So everything is blended, and if we're talking designers or niche, they sit there for a while. And that's to allow everything to bind and any of that harshness to kind of wear off. Now, what happens a lot of times with cologne fragrances is they're trying to rush these to market. Not always, but oftentimes they are. So what they do is essentially they get the fragrance in, they get the fragrance oils in, everything is blended, and then they just throw that bad boy into a bottle just about straight away and ship it out to you. So it's not necessarily that the fragrance hasn't macerated, because it has done that, it just hasn't really matured. And that's because they're rushing the fragrance out, trying to get these sales as quickly as possible, especially if it's a fragrance that is currently in a hype cycle. So they're trying to rush it out to meet that before the hype dies off. So what ends up happening is you get the fragrance in, you spray it on, and it hasn't had time to settle, it hasn't had time to mature at all. And this is actually what most often happens when people are talking about you gotta let it macerate. A little maturation, a little oxidization can actually help the fragrance open up and bloom, and with these fragrances that sometimes are rushed out, that does actually help, but it's not actually macerating, it's maturing or even oxidizing. And it's not just cologne fragrances, because the same thing happens when you're creatively directing a fragrance. You'll get these in from the perfumers. This one is from Givaudan, for example. And when you first get it in, if you spray it on, it's not gonna smell the same as it will in the finished product. You have to let this sit for usually like 2-3 weeks after you get it in, and then when you spray it on, it's gonna smell much closer to the finished product. If you judge it based off the first spray, when you get these in, for example, it's not as nice smelling. It has more of an alcohol tinge to it, and that's because they legitimately will bottle this and ship it to you overnight, so you get it like the next day. And to an extent, that's what can happen with cologne fragrances when they're being rushed out. Before we head to the next myth, here are some codes. These are not myths, they are real. You can use these across any of these sites to save yourself some money. Fragflex got one for 10% off. The Perfume Box, of course, JOMASHOP, and even Fragrance Lord. And then a lot of other stores that you can use to save yourself a little extra cash. The next myth, bruising the molecules. Actually, that kind of hurt. That was like some vein on vein action right there. Ow, ow. But this one is, you spray your wrist. It's always the wrist. And then you take the other wrist and you do this right here. Ooh, sacrilege. How dare you, you. So the idea with this one is that you are physically crushing and bruising and destroying the molecules of the fragrance. Essentially, if you could zoom in at a microscopic molecular level, you would see the fragrance molecules screaming out for mercy as you just crush them beneath your other wrist. No! The reality is you can't actually physically crush fragrance molecules by doing this. What you are doing is introducing friction. And at the same time creating a little bit of heat. Not too much, but a little bit. And essentially what happens is if you're doing this, especially if you're really going at it for some reason, I don't think people do it that much, is you kind of rush the fragrance along, so that opening is going to dissipate a lot quicker. Essentially just making those top notes dissipate from your skin quicker than they would if you just left it alone. So that's really the main thing that you wanna, keep from doing that for. Just let those top notes breathe, baby. You don't need to do that. If you want to go ahead and apply it to both, just spray on both. But you're not actually crushing the molecules. The next myth, the eau de parfum / parfum trap. Nowadays, brands will charge you a mega premium for something that's an eau de parfum or parfum, of course, because it has a higher concentration. And when people see eau de parfum or extrait or whatever, they automatically go, ooh, that must be nicer. I guess I'll pay double.
Shut up and take my money.
But what the trap is especially if you go into a local store, whether it's like a Macy's or Sephora or something like that, or sometimes even specialty stores, you'll have the salesperson tell you, well, this is a fill in the blank, parfum, eau de parfum, whatever. Therefore, it's way stronger. And it always works like that, right? They go, eau de toilette, oh, that's weak. You don't want that. Eau de parfum, yeah, that's a bit stronger, yeah. Parfum, ooh, now we're talking. We're getting some real strength. Extrait to parfum, now we're talking 36 hours, baby. You need to call a doctor. It's been on there for so long. In actuality, in the real world, concentration does not automatically mean it's going to be stronger. Now, a higher concentration of perfume oils, which is what that is, does usually carry over to mean longer longevity on your skin or clothing. But oftentimes, which is overlooked, it's at the cost or the detriment of projection or sillage. Now, of course, this is not a hard and fast rule. There are some extrait de parfums that are unbelievably powerful in terms of projection and longevity. There are some eau de toilettes that actually are extremely powerful in terms of projection and longevity. But you can also obviously find the vice versa. You can find extraits that are actually kind of weak for an extrait. You can find eau de toilettes that are really, really bad. Oftentimes what happens though is with parfum concentrations, sometimes extrait concentrations, sometimes eau de parfum, is those heavier oils just kind of sit on your skin and they linger, they last, they have great staying power, but they don't project all that hard. And so sometimes you'll have people who will be disappointed because they'll be like, well, I got the parfum. It was supposed to be a beast. It's supposed to project, fill up a room. It's supposed to turn me into the walking toxic avenger. When people smell me, they know what's up. They drop like flies. That's what I want. Instead, I got this pea baby performance. It sucks. It's pathetic. I hate myself now. I need therapy because I bought this parfum. That's the problem with my life.
You can't fix stupid.
So yes, sometimes with an eau de toilette, that lower oil concentration actually will make it project much further, especially in the top and through the mid. You've got fragrances like Sauvage Eau de Toilette that is a big beast mode performer. And for me, the Eau de Toilette version of Sauvage actually outperforms in terms of projection the Parfum version. Really, the main thing that goes into that performance category is what the fragrance is made of and what the concentration is of those ingredients. You can have an Eau de Toilette that is full of just powerful ingredients. You can have a parfum that is chock full of weak ingredients. It depends more so on the fragrance than it does the concentration, usually. The next myth, natural is always better. You'll hear this a lot, synthetic is bad. But when it comes to fragrances, actually a major part of the backbone of all fragrances, whether we're talking clones, designers, niche, indie, is synthetic ingredients. Now, of course, there are all natural perfume lines, there are all natural perfumes, and there's nothing wrong with those. But just because something says natural does not automatically mean better. In fact, there are tons of synthetic ingredients that are way more expensive and way higher end than lots of natural ingredients. And just as well, you can find lots of extremely high-end natural ingredients that are obviously much better and much higher priced than your cheap synthetics. But lots of your modern day iconic fragrances, whether we're talking about from the past or stuff coming out right now, are due to synthetic ingredients. They would not exist without them. Obviously, it is really easy to smell something and say that smells synthetic and just automatically have that be like a cast net negative over everything. But in actuality, just automatically saying this has natural ingredients does not mean this is better than that other thing over there. Unless that other thing over there is complete dog water, and then I guess, yeah, it probably is better than that. The next myth, the played out echo chamber. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the fragrances that are popular. One of the favorite pastimes of creators and of people that talk about fragrances and just, I guess, people in general with every single niche that's ever existed. And when I say niche, I'm not talking about fragrances, I'm just talking about things that people are into. One of their favorite pastimes is going, oh, that's popular? Pah! Dumbass. Why would you wear that? What's wrong with you? Don't you know it's played out? And so you'll get this advice all the time of, even if you really enjoy it and you really like it and it makes you happy, you'll get this this whole vibe of, it's played out, people wear it too much, therefore you should not wear it. And to an extent, this is pure enthusiast snobbery. In the real world, the vast majority of men don't really wear a whole lot of fragrance. Yes, you'll bump into people from time to time that wear fragrances or sometimes overspray fragrances so you can pick them up from a mile away. But think about how many people you pass in any given day that have no fragrance at all. It's a bunch. And so you're already kind of playing on an uneven battlefield, right? Where you're wearing something that most people aren't really, or if they are, it's like 1 or 2 sprays of something that they've worn since 1996. So if you really like something that's popular, doesn't matter what it is, Stronger With You, Le Male Elixir, Sauvage Elixir, Aqua de Jo, Dracar Noir, then wear it. It doesn't matter if it's popular or a bestseller, because in reality, you're probably never going to run into somebody else wearing that same fragrance at the same time. Who cares? And the final myth for today, the coffee bean cleanse. We all know this one. Go into your local store, go ahead and take a look around at all the testers and all that stuff. What are you gonna see? Little cup of beans. Not baked beans, not pinto beans, coffee beans. And the idea here, of course, is you're spraying these fragrances, you're smelling these fragrances, and your nose just, checks out. It's like, nah, it's okay, no thanks. And then you can't really smell anything anymore. Your day is ruined. How are you gonna know which fragrance has the best opening to buy right away? That's where the coffee beans come in. Go ahead and huff those bad boys like you're having a great time down in Colombia, and supposedly your nose just, ooh. Oh, you're like John Hamm in that one meme. You can smell again. In actuality, coffee beans have a pretty pungent scent profile, and there's nothing in coffee that resets your nose. It doesn't actually work that way. This is gonna sound weird, but I heard this years and years and years ago, and it's the thing that works best. If you're trying to reset your nose, the best thing you can do is smell your unscented skin. I know it sounds weird, but it works. So if you're huffing, and your nose is starting to tap out, go ahead and just do that. I know, like I said, it looks weird, but keep some spot that's completely unscented, smell that. It will help reset your nose a lot quicker. Another thing that you can do is get some fresh air. And I know that's not really necessarily realistic if you're in a store setting like a mall or something like that. Just be like, hold on guys, I'll be right back. I gotta go out the front door and just stand and just breathe for a little bit, and then I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
2 very boring minutes later.
So if you don't want to do that, you can sniff your skin a little bit, unscented, and that will help reset your nose a lot quicker and more efficiently than sniffing on some coffee beans. So there we go, guys, 7 different fragrance myths. Let me know in the comments some other fragrance myths that you're really fond of, whether you just think it's funny or stupid or everything in between. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.